half a package. Okay, so we do again have notes to take.
Oh, dude, let me tell you what doesn't she do.
All right, so while we're waiting for everything to pop up, a couple of things to make sure you are aware of. Make sure you do bell questions today and tomorrow. You guys will be at home tomorrow, so make sure you turn those bell questions in. Why are we not turning on? Okay. And I gotta fix this. That's why. Tomorrow we'll have the same little bit of notes that we're taking today, so make sure that you do that. Again, it will make that assignment a lot harder. That assignment isn't due until Tuesday. It's not something that you should be able to do all at once. It is part of this, what we're looking at, the long decline of the fall of Rome. The modern European history, and what we think about as modern history, really begins when Rome falls, when the collapse of Rome begins. It is a moment that sends Europe into a spiral of death, destruction, bad stuff. And I hope that I presented to you and you've gotten this idea of the glory of Rome, especially things like indoor plumbing and being able to move water through aqueducts and roads and literature, and all of these great things are all going to be lost as this giant empire collapses. It doesn't collapse all at once. It falls very slowly, and it takes a very long period of time. And there are lots and lots of reasons. And what we, again, are going to be looking at is there any point of which it could have been saved, that there is a way that the empire could have been saved. So that's what we'll be taking a look at as we move through. Again, explain how and why the Roman Empire was divided. And that should be first little clue to you. We're going to divide the empire in half. And as soon as we divide the empire in half, bad things are going to happen. Let's close up our laptops for me, people. Makes me feel better. Thank you. How the waves of invaders. So here's the interesting thing and why I love history so much. One of my favorite things to occupy my time with, and I can't even tell you how many times I've watched it, is the HBO miniseries Bands of Brothers. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen that movie or the miniseries. It's long. It's like 10 hours. I dedicate myself to it every once in a while when I don't have anything else to do. It's great. What? You like that? Have you seen it? Okay. You've never seen it? You've never seen Bands of Brothers. Okay. It's about World War II. It starts and it follows the 1st paratroopers. It follows Easy Company, 101st Airborne, 1st paratroopers. Do what? Well, it's a great movie. Anyway, my point being, I've watched it so many times, but there is one part of the miniseries when they're in the Battle of the Bulge in the middle of December, January. They're freezing. It's this big final push of the Germans. They're snowed in, fogged in. They're getting bombed all the time. And in the middle of all this, the one guy, and I just saw it I just watched it 3 or 4 days ago on Thanksgiving break. And I'm like, I've never heard him say this before. And as he's sitting watching this big German field, he goes, this is what the Romans must have felt like when the Vandals and Visigoths. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never paid attention to that. That's people that are going to invade Rome, the Vandals and the Visigoths. History is everywhere. Even in the middle of a history movie, you get more history. So, and then identify the various types of problems that led to the fall of Rome. I actually had to listen to it 3 times to make sure that's what it said. And I know that was so interesting to tell you guys, but it does give me a moment to sit down and breathe. So, People, terms. Again, we don't do this very often in this class where I make you know vocabulary. And when I do, big reason, because it's going to show up on the test. Diocletian is the emperor who splits the Roman Empire in two. Die means how many? Two. When you dissect something, bisect. So we are going to split the Roman Empire in two. And when we split it in two, we should already know bad things are going to happen. Inflation is a rapid rise in prices when prices go up, but your wages stay flat. And then we are going to look at the new place that Constantine is going to name as the center of this new Rome, which is Constantinople. And that will become the center of New Rome and the Byzantine Empire. Our next group will be Huns. These are nomadic people from Central Asia who will migrate into Eastern Europe. And when they do that, they set off that chain of events that will lead to the invasion of Rome. This is catastrophic. These are the Huns, these are the Mongols. My people who enjoy the movie Mulan, that's the people that are coming over the wall. And then finally, mercenaries. We've talked a lot about mercenaries. They are soldiers who serve for pay rather than loyalty. You usually have one of two things happening when you use mercenaries. Number one, they are very vicious. Usually if you're a soldier that's being paid for money, you're a soldier because you're good at it, you're ruthless. Many times you aren't sure that you're going to get paid, so you take stuff to make up for that. And then the second part is you're not loyal. You're loyal to whoever paid your last paycheck. And so mercenaries, again, typically, if you have to use them as a nation, you're in a bad spot. And if they're being used on you by someone else, you're in a really bad spot. So our first look at the fall of Rome begins when Pax Romana ends. So remember, Pax Romana is this 100 years of peace. And I know when we talk about extended period of time, like 100 years, that's a long time to go without fighting. That's about 4 generations of men that don't fight. And it is an extended period of time that allows you to spend money that you would have spent on war on other things. And that's what we noted in our last section. Built roads, bridges, literature, they built baths, theaters. But as that ends...
Imagine how ahead they would have been though if, like, well, you know, some people were
if what?
And stuff, and they were about to war up, and the next time they fought, they were already like 10 years ahead of them.
Okay.
I'm just saying, you gotta think of that.
Okay.
You gotta have a decent size. That's like my big brain kicking in there.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You'd be way
No,
ahead
I
of
don't. But you can just keep your big brain back over there.
Oh,
All right, so Rome's going to fall into a period of political instability and violence. And as this happens, more and more generals are going to try to seize power. And in trying to seize that power, they will put themselves in positions where they are easy to overthrow, they're easy to be assassinated. And in this one 50-year period, we're going to have 26 different rulers. That will not allow you to have a prosperous empire if you're turning over in rapid fire who is ruling or governing that empire. So that will begin one of the many causes of Rome to begin to collapse. We're also going to have economic and social problems. And one obviously follows the other with these economic issues. In order to pay for all that in order to pay for all that grain that we paid out to poor people, you have to tax someone. And that's the issue with taxes. Governments don't have jobs. They don't earn money. The only way they can get money is to tax the people that live there. And so where those taxes are going to come from are the few places that actually make money. And that will be farmers and businesses. When you tax those people, if it is too heavy of a burden, meaning I can no longer afford to be a farmer because I'm taxed too much, then things starts to fall apart. Because what happens to farmers, is the more they grow, the more they're taxed. And so you have to levy that out as a farmer as if I grow more, I have to pay more. And so what will happen is I will stop producing food. Small farmers are going to move to the estates of the wealthy where they're not allowed to leave the land. And again, this goes back to the very beginning of our coursework in that chapter 2. How did society begin? We had a surplus of food. How does society react when there is not enough food? Chaos. Terrible economic chaos when you can't feed your own country. So the next part of it is our Roman legions were no longer invincible. Part of the power of Rome was the ability of its army to invade, to overpower other nations. And so now, rather than having citizen soldiers, we had mercenaries, and you got to pay them. So that's another drain on the treasure box for the Roman Empire, is the fact that we now no longer have enough men to fill up the ranks of the Roman legion, and so now we have to pay. And many of these armies were used by generals for that civil war, or to bring about the downfall of another general, to help assassinate someone. And instead of protecting your empire, you're creating chaos within your empire. And so that's another difficult part of the empire to take care of. And again, if one of these things happens, perhaps the empire could react and fix and come up with some issues to change that pathway. But when all of these things happen at the same time, it becomes very difficult for governments to handle all of these issues at the same time. So Diocletian says, I got a plan. One of the problems with Rome is it's too big. So let's separate and divide the Roman Empire in half. And that's what Diocletian does. He appointed a co-emperor, Maximum, divided the empire in half. And again, we should already know when this happens, there will be trouble. Co-leaders usually don't work very well together. Max is going to get the western provinces. Diocletian is going to take the wealthier eastern provinces. And so right away, Max says, whoa, wait a minute. You divided it, and you got to keep the part that was the wealthiest. That doesn't really seem like a fair split to me. So that's the problem with the first thing when we divide it. Diocletian says the next thing is we've got to get inflation under control. So inflation occurs when the cost of something goes up, but your wages stay flat. So if you work, let's say you work at the Dairy Queen, very nice people that run the Dairy Queen, and they are watching, because they're right across the street from the gas station, they're watching gas prices go up. And when the gas prices go up, Mr. Pirtle says, I'm going to increase everyone's paycheck by 10 cents an hour to compensate for the fact that gas prices are going up. That would not have any kind of negative impact on your pocketbook, because as the price of something went up, your wages go up. If you can find someone that would pay you like that, I would encourage you to work for that person forever, because that's not the way it works. When prices of things go up, typically your wages stay flat. And so if you are a driver and the price of gas continues to go up and your wages stay flat, you have to figure out another way to support yourself. And so that's what Diocletian is saying. Let's stop raising the prices of things. So no one else is allowed to raise the price of their goods and services. Sons are required to follow their occupations of their fathers. And farmers, you have to stay on your land. Now, some of you, let's just take a poll here. Let's pretend we're all sons. How many of you would be very happy to do the job that your dad does? 4 people, kind of, sort of, maybe 5. How many of you would detest doing what your dad does for the rest of your days? Right. So For part of the country, doing their dad's thing is not that bad of a deal. For the other part, it's going to be a really bad deal. So what Diocletian is setting up is many different policies that are going to make a lot of people really upset and angry. So here's our split of Diocletian's. The Eastern Roman Empire, that really dark color orange, that's the wealthy part. The light color orange, the Western Roman Empire, that part is not as developed, nor is it as wealthy. So we're going to sit here for a while. About 200 years, we're going to sit with Diocletian's split and hang on to both the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. In 312, Emperor Constantine takes the throne and will forever alter the future of Europe. Actually, I would even say forever altered the history of the world, because in 312, he grants religious toleration to Christians. And in doing that, moves Christianity from the underground, from being persecuted, from people being killed for their beliefs, to the official religion of the Roman Empire. And in doing so, sets in motion to create what will become a Christianized Western Europe. He makes his capital Constantinople, and this new Rome again keeps shifting to the east. All right, any questions about that? All right, our last slide of the day, and I'll come back to this one if you need it, is now we're under attack. Increasingly, the Western Roman Empire is going to come under attack from nomads, nomadic people. And that nomadic people are going to start, I said we're going to do one more just to look at the map, sorry. So wars in Central Asia are going to send those Huns into Eastern Europe. And then those Huns in Eastern Europe are going to push those Germanic tribes into the Roman territory to escape those Mongols, because they are bad news. And then eventually Britain, France, Spain, all of Rome itself is going to be overrun. And so when we think about the fall of Rome, it comes from the east, and it just continues to push everyone into those Roman outland areas, which, because the Roman legion, the Roman army, had been so depleted, is not protected. And so the outskirts of Rome will feel the push of these invaders first, these Germanic tribes, and eventually those Germanic tribes will push into the Roman territory. And I'm going to flip one more. I'll come back if you haven't finished that one. And this will be where our invaders are coming. So they all start back in that red arrow, the Huns moving in, and then all of them will just sweep through and overwhelm the Roman legions. Huns, again, being the most feared of those invaders. All right. So your assignment gives you a big, giant list of all the stuff that's going on with Rome. You have to sort those issues into categories: political issues, economic issues, social issues, and walk those through step by step, figuring out which ones of those issues belong in which category. And those of you that need that one back, there it is. And then on the next page, there's a couple questions that you have to answer. Most of them, well, we went through a lot of them today. Not all of them. Tomorrow we'll pick up the rest of them. And then what do you need, Lexi? How far back do you need me to go? One more? That one? Okay. And so tomorrow, while you guys are at home, another short, this took us 18 minutes, but that's with me telling a lot of time with stories. So tomorrow, while you're at home, make sure you at least watch. You don't have to listen, because you can always mute me if you want to. And then tomorrow we'll have an additional short read about the Germanic tribes. Okay? All right, questions, anybody about any of that? Do I need to go back for any other? Okay, everybody got that?
When's this due? This assignment?
Do what?
When's the assignment we have to do?
It's not due till Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
hmm
Is it hard?